The US presidential election is just around the corner, and we are being hit with so many false stories, narratives, and myths around the electrification of transportation. So it's important to take a moment and clear all of that up. Let's get the facts straight on what it means to truly electrify transportation in the United States and around the world. I'm so thrilled to have with me some powerhouse panelists on exactly this topic. We have, to my left, Angela Hultberg. She is the Global Sustainability Director at A.T. Kearney. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
Next to Angela, we have David Fenton, who has been a lifelong climate activist. David, thank you for joining us. And to David's left, we have Sarah Lazarovich. She is the Communications and Creative Strategy, VP of Communications and Creative Strategy at Rewiring America. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got some myths to debunk here, right? Why are we seeing so many negative attacks on what would be seemingly a great transition to clean transportation and ultimately to clean energy? What is preventing this transition from moving forward? Is it just these myths? What else is happening?
I think transition and change is always scary, right? There's always going to be those who wants to stick to what they know, wants to stick to the business models they have and what's comfortable, right? We saw the same not too long ago with digitalization, right? Some really leaned into it, some resisted, they went out of business because you just can't resist disruptive change like that. And we'll see the same thing with sustainability and big transformational shifts. I think what's delaying it a bit is, and we've been struggling with the same thing for many years, it's the cost of switching to EVs for, especially for end consumers, but also for fleets and especially in heavy duty. There is range anxiety. We don't see enough capacity in the grid to actually switch fully faster. What I want to say with all of that, and we're going too slow, change is exponential, right? And nobody cares when the fleet goes from 0.2% of total to 0.4 to 0.8, still less than 1%. But it is exponential. And once EVs take off and go from 8 to 16 to 32 to 64, that's when we'll see the big changes. So,
okay, that's exciting.
Be patient, have some faith. It really is an exponential change.
Okay, so it's going to take off. So it's not just sort of this negative rhetoric we're hearing from some. It's the actual issues, right? Some of these bottlenecks that you've described. But I really do want to come back to what these negative stories, the negative PR that's been put out there by the oil and gas industry, to be totally frank. And nobody knows more about this than you, David. Talk to us about what has oil and gas's playbook been to keep business as usual?
Well, if we electrify cars, they're not going to sell oil. So they're trying to stop it. They're trying to delay it, and they lie a lot. And they spread a lot of false propaganda. And, they're trying to slow this transition because it threatens their profits. And, we know that it's not rhetoric to say that these people have known for 50 years that their products were going to destroy a livable climate and a livable earth, and they lied about it. And they funded disinformation campaigns, and they're still doing it on electric cars, on batteries. I mean, they're saying that, windmills offshore kill whales. And of course, they don't care about whales one bit. And it isn't true. So there's all these false memes that they spread on purpose because they're nasty propagandists. And, one of the problems is that the electric car manufacturers and the NGOs and people in government are a little afraid to talk about this the way that I think would really motivate the public, which is not only that, of course, electric cars are cheaper to operate now, and they're about to be cheaper to buy, and batteries are going to keep getting cheaper. In China now, you can buy great electric cars for $10,000. But, they are afraid that this is going to happen exponentially. So they're trying to stop it.
Okay, so you brought up China, so I'm going to come to you on this, Sarah, because we have been talking a lot generally leading up to this election about what is good for the American public. And the Inflation Reduction Act, this historic legislation that was passed to really invigorate the U.S. economy around clean energy, transitioning to clean energy across all sectors, has really benefited transportation. So talk to us a little about to what extent the Inflation Reduction Act has really come through for the transportation sector, At the same time, there's this competition with China, like David just said, right? These cars are being made faster, it's more easily accessible, affordable, all of those things. So what's the next iteration? How do we protect all of the advancements that have been made through the IRA and allow the American public to really enjoy American-made products, and not to be protectionist, but to ultimately reap the benefits of all of the effort that's being put into this sector?
Sure. I'll answer that question by rewinding to the premise of everything we're speaking about here now. I mean, even to start with the premise that the transition is slow or delayed is to accept oil and gas lobby spin. Because if you actually look at the numbers, 25% of the cars sold in California last year were EVs. 20% of global car sales will be EVs or plug-in hybrids this year. The August numbers I don't have exactly, but they're shocking, and in every case they exceed expectations. And so, number one, before we even start the conversation about how the IRA has catalyzed all this stuff, we should say we reject the premise that this is delayed. Like, if you think about the fact that the internal combustion engine had 100 years to take hold and build gas stations, which didn't exist across the country, to think that like this EV transformation is happening at this speed, and within 8 years we're going to, according to some estimates from Energy Innovation, have charging commensurate to the amount of gas stations in North America. That's pretty darn fast. So when people say, oh, it's slow, or you see dubious studies saying this isn't happening as fast as we think, I'd question the premise. If you look at the IRA and you see that $1 billion have been used, leveraged for the incentives, which are, $4,000 for a used car, $7,500 for a new car, that's pretty darn compelling as well. And only more to happen. I mean, when you see the manufacturers taking advantage of this to build batteries, to just catalyze the supply chain, to get to your point, to meet where we have to go. We're not going to have a BYD $15,000 car this year, but manufacturers stateside know that we have to get there. And even the CEO of Ford is saying it's an existential threat. So it's not a question of whether we're going to do this. We have to do this if we want to preserve our economy, and not even for protectionist reasons. Just we have to.
Sure.
These are, it's, and our EVs make up, I think, 1/3, transit makes up 1/3 of our emissions. So for a million reasons, we have to do this. But the cool thing is, America has always made awesome cars. We can make awesome cars again. We just have to figure out how to do that at the speed and scale to match counterparts across the world who have seen this and made it happen.
Sure.
And so as we highlight the IRA, and as people see their neighbors taking advantage of these tax credits and buying these cars, it's only going to be catalytic. To Angela's point, exponential growth. We didn't think solar would grow to 6,000%, and it is. EVs, maybe not to the same extent, but they're getting there pretty darn fast. And so, when I buy an EV and people see my shiny new EV on my driveway, my neighbor's going to ask about it. And you know what? These cars are better. You don't have to go charge up at a stinky gas station. So eventually, the IRA monies are going to be unlocked by everybody. And some of our research has shown that, the IRA monies are almost infinite in how much we can access them. So the more money people access, the more money people access. I will stop talking now.
No, that's amazing.
But if I may just build on what you're saying, it's also even the environmental benefits set aside for businesses, like you said, this is just business development, right? You cannot not do it. It's like Netflix Blockbuster. One adapted to change, one did not, and nobody's too big to fail. So even without all the environmental, reasons for changing and offering electric vehicles from the car manufacturers, it's also just really bad business to not do it. If you keep investing all your money and resources and technology in internal combustion engines, it's like investing it all in an electric typewriter when the computer is already on the market.
Right.
Because you have to offer the customer the best product. And these are companies, made up by engineers. They like innovation. They like figuring out what's the best way of doing something. And they like to offer, obviously, their customers a superior product. It's good for the customer even if it's, a gas car, it's good for the customer if it uses as little gas as possible. It's cheaper to get more miles by the gallon, right? It's even better if they don't have to pay for gas and they can buy cheap energy instead. So it's a win-win for everyone except for the ones selling fossil fuels.
Yeah, but the way to really boost the adoption of electric cars, in addition to the price curve, is we need to help people understand that their gas cars are giving their kids asthma. Their gas cars are causing wildfires to get into their lungs. Their gas cars are threatening their homes with flooding and stronger hurricanes. And I have a lot of belief and faith in the public that they can understand this. We don't talk about it this way enough. As we do, as people understand this is a survival issue. It's a protection of our way of life issue. Of course, more people are going to buy electric cars as they become cheap. But this is a survival issue. You know, I don't call it sustainability. I call it survivability.
I think that's all true and key, but also we just have to sell people better things. And, you know, even though people say they care about climate, my rubric is the 5 C's, and climate is often the last one. They care about cost. They care about control. They care about comfort. And the cool thing is that EVs have all of those things. So if they get a better product that saves them money, that makes their life more comfortable, that, you know, doesn't require them to go hang out at a smelly gas station, that charges up their whole community and, you know, helps them feel resilient when the power goes out where they are because they know they now have a battery parked in their garage. That's all amazing. And bonus, they're helping save the planet.
Yeah, but, you know, it's not saving the planet.
No,
it's saving a
us.
livable Earth.
It's saving survivability. Yes, it's saving it for
And
people.
again, people are capable of understanding that. You know, a lot of people in the climate movement and industry shy away from talking about it that way. And I think that's very elitist. You know, people are capable of understanding the stakes if we explain it simply to them. Remember, people hate pollution. Nobody defends pollution, but, you know, we use these words like emissions and net zero that no one understands. You know, we're going to get rid of pollution. Sounds pretty good, right?
So, but it is politicized. I just have to say, if we look at car manufacturers, especially the ones in Europe, they have very different communication strategies for the US versus Europe versus Asia.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's a selling point that you're doing something great for the environment, for your kids, for the cities, and for the air you actually breathe. It's the same in Asia. It's a selling point. In the US, they have to tone that message down because it's been
we do our job and create public knowledge about that like they have in Europe.
I think it's also because it's politicized, right? Somehow in the US, we've connected EVs to Republican or Democrat. And I think that's the difference from the rest of the world.
Right.
So I knew I didn't need questions for you all. I'm so glad I didn't even bother because here we are. This is what we're getting. When people live and breathe this, you can tell, right? So, okay, back to you. We're gonna delve into all of this. Back to you on a question just a thread I would like to go down for a second. You work with these manufacturers, and so for them, it's business sense, and they need support from the government. Obviously, the IRA, really spurred a lot of that. But what else is it that they need, and what do they need to be able to meet their net zero ambitions? Because most of them have them at this point, right?
They
Some really
do.
ambitious
They
targets.
do.
So what do they still need?
I think, a lot of it is policy, right? At this point, they have the technology. Again, really smart people, very, skilled R&D department. So they have that. They need demand to be there and be strong, obviously. And the way to create demand is to make sure, build out the charging infrastructure, no range anxiety. It's still one of the main reasons why people don't buy EVs. But we also need to make it cost competitive. And one way of doing that is, not even subsidizing EVs, although it would be nice if there was a political will to do that. You could simply stop subsidizing fossil fuel.
There's an idea.
And let them carry their own cost. And that would make you, all of a sudden, buying an EV would look pretty good if we stopped subsidizing fossil fuel. So, and what they need from a business perspective is consistency. It is hard to justify making, 4, 8, 10, 15, 20-year investment when the political landscape changes every 4 years, potentially. And there's no, we need that stability to say, okay, we'll put something in, you can count on this. This will be a fact that you can base large investments on. And then we would see investments in charging infrastructure and strengthening the grid, all of that. Because it's not only cars and vehicles and automotive, it's the energy sector. They are merging into one mobility sector, and we need political will and we need stability to make these multi-billion dollars investments.
I mean, stability is critical. That's what everyone is resisting is that change, like you were saying right in the beginning. And that's why this monopoly that has been in existence for so long by big oil is the threat to that is what's making big oil like dig in now. And
It's called corruption.
oil corruption.
They corrupt our politics.
Well, yes, it's interchangeable, especially in this context. So, okay, so David, pick up on this.
That, in my opinion, is if we educate the public. Because where does political will come from? It comes from public knowledge and public action and public demand, which also drives markets. So as we increase people's understanding that these are better, cheaper, faster, cleaner, and also, will save your house from flooding, then demand will grow. And it will make it impossible for reactionary forces linked to these legacy dirty industries to slow this down, because the public will look at them and say, you're threatening my children. They're not going to stand for it when they understand.
So, David, you're all about power of the people, power by the people. I respect that. To what extent does that help policy, Sarah? So how much do we need the public to get behind some of these IRA type big, efforts by the government to invigorate the economy and to invigorate this transition to clean energy? Is it necessary? Does that have to be part of it?
We do. And I totally agree with David. I think we need power of the people, we need power of the policy, and we need power of the purchasers. And what I think of there is, we've done the numbers. The upfront costs are coming down every day. People say they're too high, but every month there are new models that are at parity with gas cars. Beyond that, by our data, over the lifetime costs of an internal combustion engine and an EV, you'll save $10,000, approximately around $1,000 a month. That math doesn't make sense. $12,000, but it is about $10,000.
Nobody can do math that fast. Nobody on this side of the panel can do math that fast.
Well, it's a lot of money, and when we do things like show people that it's the equivalent to power up your EV, it's like paying $1.24 per gallon of gas. That is salient for people because people have very real concerns in these extremely tough economic times, and if we can start to tell that story to people, that lands with them and they understand everything David is saying. They're like, oh yeah, why is someone who is engineering a world where I am being told not to have this thing that is very good for me, for my pocketbook, for my kids, for my community? And as we do that, there's a ton of research shows that spreads, right? The person who gets solar panels is more likely to get an EV. The person who has an EV is more likely to care about all these things. And especially with EVs, your political agency is something you care about because once you buy an EV, that's an asset you have. And then you're going to advocate for chargers in your neighborhood because if everybody's buying EVs and there's too many chargers and there's not enough chargers, you're going to care. And so suddenly that asset that you spend a lot of money on is something you're going to advocate for. And advocacy is something we really need in this world, but especially in this country where, engagement with these issues and getting people to pay attention is so hard. So it's all of a piece. Like, I want that person to come to council or whatever, stand up for that ordinance at their local government when push comes to shove, and they will if they suddenly have an asset they have to protect. And it can happen the other way too, obviously, and it needs to, especially in this world of like, what are the pieces that we can advocate for on the policy front? We need EV charging in affordable housing. We need to make it equitable. It's scary late at night to go charge your EV in a dim parking lot, when it's really far away from the gas station because they put the charger over there. So there are a ton of policy things we can do to push for that being a little bit better for people. And when we do all those things together, I think we'll see this rising up of power where people realize that the deck has been stacked against them. And to Angela's point, we've been subsidizing fossil fuels to the detriment of our kids' health and our planet's future viability, well, not future viability, humanity's future viability. And so it'll kind of like some change.
So I'm going to respect one more piece of that puzzle, sorry. And it's the fact that, like I said, the energy sector and the automotive sector are merging. We are not that far from the cars being batteries that also help the grid, where people can make money off of their car. We don't utilize our car, right? A car stands still more than 90% of the time, usually. What if during that 90%, while you're at work or you're sleeping, you can make some money off of your vehicle to help balance the grid? You charge it when it's cheaper, and then you bring back energy in when it's expensive. Maybe you go to, I don't know, Walmart, and you get a coupon because you allow Walmart to take some energy out of your battery that you charge while it was cheap at home, etc. So we're also not too far from that reality where everyone is involved in keeping our energy and our grid balanced.
Yeah.
Utilities are going to offer point of purchase rebates if you agree to hook your battery up to the grid. And I've seen estimates that that's going to be around $5,000, which already will take electric cars and make them cheaper than
Exactly.
gasoline cars. And remember, in California, a number of other states and some European countries, by 2035, at the latest, the sale of new gasoline cars is banned. So this is going to happen. We just all have to try to make it happen even faster.
So say what you will, oil and gas propaganda, but the reality is it's not pie in the sky to actually think you can make money off your electric cars at not too distant of a future. So that's really exciting. I'm glad we're not just debunking kind of the negative rhetoric that's been put out there, but actually really expressing the potential of what could come if we accelerate this faster. And like you said, it's exponential. Once it happens,
it's not something that could come. It's something that's already happening.
Yeah,
right?
it's a GM that's going to have only bi-directional cars by someone who works in the sector knows when. Very soon. And so we'll all be powering back the grid.
And by the way, it is a really good feeling never to have to go to a gas station. I can't tell you how good that is.
Yes. What?
And
you don't want to get catcalled at a gas station?
Well, actually, to confess, I go to clean my windshield.
This straddle, and this is completely nonpartisan because, once you have that control of your power, I mean, that is people who are like, get your hands off my everything. That is people who care about community. That's every sector of the population, regardless of your political affiliation, has this ability to own this power and share it as they want to, make money off it as they want to. That's pretty darn compelling. And like no amount of spin can.
One myth they propagate, just to show you how devious they are. You've all heard this. Well, the amount of mining we have to do for these bad things is massive and awful and dirty. And okay, so we do need to improve mining for rare earths. It's true. But if you look at the amount of mining for rare earths for batteries compares the amount of drilling and destruction from fossil fuels into the earth, it's like this. But, they put this stuff out to confuse people. They're really good at it.
Yeah, it's all that disinformation that we need to combat, right? And so one example of how we can do that is to talk about the benefit of the jobs that will be created from this, right? They're trying to say that this transition is taking jobs away from American workers, but we know that is not true. So 310,000 new jobs have already been created since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, and there's so much more potential there. Let's start with you. How excited is the manufacturing sector in terms of new opportunities and new just workforces that are coming into this new clean energy revolution?
I think, look, I'm not sure they are excited. I think they are panicking because they're going to need so many people.
Oh, wow.
Right? So what we're seeing is...
Wasn't sure where that was going, but that was...
Yeah. But it is exciting, right? I absolutely reject the notion that, this transformation into a greener economy will lead to fewer jobs. That just doesn't make sense. But yeah, we're going to need people to reskill, to upskill. We're going to see a host of new STEM jobs. It's actually, to me, it's a great opportunity to right some of the wrongs in this sector. More women in STEM jobs, for instance. But it's also not, it doesn't have to be like high tech and like I need an engineering degree to work in this sector. Absolutely not. I actually saw earlier today, it's a fantastic woman, Linda. She runs an energy company in Africa. She's very dedicated to upskilling, right? And one of the stories she told this morning was about a lady who used to run a cleaning company, cleaning windows. And she took the opportunity to retrain and upskill her employees, and now they're cleaning solar panels instead. So you don't have to be a scientist to be in green energy jobs. It's just about upskilling, and there's jobs, so many different types of jobs for everyone. So I'm excited, but I think the businesses are like, they're realizing that maybe we have to do this ourselves. Maybe we have to be the ones upskilling, reskilling, bringing people in. How can we work together with academia? How can we work with politicians? A lot needs to happen, and a lot of people need to learn a lot of things, but it's definitely going to be a surplus of jobs.
Meanwhile, energy business as usual from pollution will destroy jobs, will erode the economy, will cause certain economic decline through extreme weather. So that's another false argument. They know it's a false argument. By the way, there is one place where electric cars will reduce employment, And because they need almost no maintenance, the service department of your car dealer is going to have a lot less work to do.
Sure.
But, you know, the people that took care of the horses had to get other jobs. I feel for the people in the service departments, but most people will say, wow, I don't have to take it in for service. That's terrific.
So talk to me about what a future would look like, David. I'm going to stick with you. We're doing the final round. I know this one way too fast, as we knew it would. What does a future look like that is only EV? And I'm curious for you to take a health angle on this.
Well, it's quieter. Yes. The air is cleaner. Remember what the air looked like in cities during COVID lockdowns? That's what it's going to be like, you know. It's not going to contribute to inundating our cities with sea level rise. It's not going to. We'll have, you know, as we transition to less carbon energy, we'll eventually be able to avoid making the hurricanes stronger and the wildfires stronger, and we'll be able to survive on planet Earth. It'll be great.
Okay, so survivability is the future. Sarah, please.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you can say after that, because like, what's better than survivability? I will add, it will be joyful. It will be wonderful.
And fast too.
Yeah, we will, like, it is not hyperbole to say that, like, things will be connected. Like, my metaphor is that, not mine, our whole organization's metaphor, like, electrification is literally connecting people with wires. It is also connecting people in a very real community way. Like, there's a metaphor there that your car is powering your neighbor when there's an extreme weather event, if, you know, the power goes out. Like, everybody is connected in a way that we haven't been in a really long time, because we've been throwing this money away to petrostate dictators and, you know, evil overlords, to be a bit of a David, you know, who are just taking all our resources and not giving us anything in return. So electrification is a story of keeping that money, keeping that power, keeping that support in your community. And when we do that, that money's staying there. So actually it means, hey, maybe we can build that pool or that new community center, because we're not just literally burning our money and like throwing it away. And I think that's pretty profound. And I think people will see that and realize it.
Yeah.
And, you know, those of us who charge our electric cars with our solar panels, we have a very big advantage. The sun can never go up in price.
Right.
No utility can raise the price of the sun. So we're never going to have gas price shock if you charge your car with your solar panels, like the Pope does, like a lot of people do.
So brilliant. Last word to Angela. I'm going to ask you, what does the future look like? What does an only EV future look like, especially if we're able to break up this oil and gas monopoly that has dictated American modernity for so long, globalization as well? What's that going to look like?
I think it's going to be more efficient and cheaper, and obviously better for all the reasons my fellow panelists have said. I do want to say that electrification will be part of the puzzle. It's not like a magic silver bullet that will solve all of our problems. It's not going to be only electric. It's going to be electric, but it's also going to be shared. We're going to see an increase of public transportation. We're going to utilize the vehicles we actually put on the road much more than we do today. So is it electric? Absolutely. But it's so much more than that. And I love the point you made about it being more, you know, more of a community around mobility. And I really do think that's what we're going to see.
Nice. Well, we are all social animals, hence how much fun we've had here talking about a better, brighter, more breathable future. So thank you for your expertise, your contributions, the work you do, and for debunking these myths and ushering in a governance system in this country and globally that really sees the benefit of a fast transition to clean energy. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
Go ahead.